Hi, everyone. We're just going to give everyone 1 minute to log on and we will get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Leanne Rexford with the Able Trust. Before we begin, I have just a few notes to take care of. We are recording this webinar and we will make it available on our website shortly after we finish. We will also be utilizing the Q&A feature to field the questions you may have. If for whatever reason we do not address your question during the session, we will reach out to you directly. Again, I want to thank you personally for being here for the Able Trust's first of 4 webinars during Disability Employment Awareness Month, or DEAM. And speaking of DEAM, this year we were inspired by the lyrics of Dolly Parton's song 9 to 5, where she sings to us about how she starts her day with a cup of ambition. Our hashtag Cup of Ambition campaign was developed from the belief that everyone who is willing should have the opportunity to go to work each day with an energizing beverage of their choice. My personal preference is coffee. Cheers. And we'd love to know how you all start your day too. If you'd like to join our campaign, just post a photo of yourself with your energizing beverage on social media with the hashtag Cup of Ambition, and don't forget to tag us. Here's an example if you're feeling a little uninspired. Everyone, please meet my service dog. Her name is Willow, and Willow's hashtag Cup of Ambition is filtered water at room temperature. I have tagged the Able Trust and used the hashtag DEAM as well. Now, for those of you who are not familiar or as familiar with the Able Trust, let me tell you how we are working to make Florida's workforce more inclusive. The Able Trust is a direct service organization for vocational rehabilitation created by the legislature more than 30 years ago. We exist to be a stable and growing financial resource to provide planning, research, and policy development for disability employment in Florida. For these last 30 years, we've been known primarily as a grant maker. Looking forward to the next 30 years of operation, the Able Trust is repositioning our work on disability employment by being the thought leader for workforce disability inclusion. As you can see from the graphic on your screen, there is workforce participation gap of approximately 40% between persons with disabilities and the general population. It's unacceptable, and in response, we have created Inclusive Florida. Inclusive Florida is our strategic plan and the roadmap for closing the gap. We are positioning ourselves as the state leader for disability employment. Our approach has 3 key components: data and research, capacity building, and outreach. The stakeholders we are working with include employers, career service providers, elected officials, and community leaders. We believe that through Inclusive Florida, We will identify breakthrough innovations grounded in data and research, resulting in an additional 300,000 Floridians with disabilities becoming employed by 2032. To do this, we're going to lead with data. In the last year, we have published 2 in-depth reports. They are available on our website. Please take the time to download and read them, and the results may surprise you. Over the last year or so, the Able Trust team has been conducting dozens of listening sessions all over our state with all of our stakeholders, and we have learned what's working well, what needs improvement, and how we can better serve the community at large. We believe that connecting to the boots on the ground is the most efficient way to learn how we can be the most effective. However, we know that we cannot reach our goal without first building our employment capacity statewide. Using this multi-pronged approach, we are confident that we will reach our goal of 300,000 Floridians with disabilities entering the workforce in 10 years. A perfect example of an Able Trust program that shows the successful implementation of the 3-pronged approach is High School High Tech. It was established about 25 years ago to increase the graduation rates among high school students with disabilities. It has since evolved to not only get the students to graduation, but also help students explore education and workforce training opportunities after high school. We are proud to say that the high school graduation rate for participants is 99%, with many students moving on to post-secondary education. As you can see, High School High Tech spans much of the state, from the Panhandle all the way down to Miami. Now, I could talk about this all day long, but that's not why you're here. Today, we are here to speak with the Arc of Jacksonville and VyStar Credit Union about how they support one another with employing and empowering people with intellectual disabilities. Ms. Kari Bates is the president CEO of the Arc Jacksonville, and like yours truly, is a graduate of the University of Central Florida. Go Knights. Kari began working for the Arc of Putnam County in 2015 and served as executive director from 2019 to 2021 when she took on the role of president CEO of the Arc Jacksonville. Kari is passionate about improving the lives of individuals with developmental differences and believes communities are transformed when people of all abilities are valued for their unique contributions. Thank you for being here, Kari. Also joining us is Mr. Brian Wolfburg, the president CEO of VyStar Credit Union. He has been in his current role since 2017. VyStar Credit Union is a not-for-profit, member-owned financial cooperative that serves more than 840,000 members. Brian earned his MBA from New York University's Stern School of Business and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the State University of New York at Buffalo. Brian serves as a member of many boards based in Jacksonville. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks so much for being here. Now, I would really like to start with Kari. Kari, how did the Arc of Jacksonville develop its relationship with VyStar, and how long have the two organizations been working together?
Thanks, Leanne, and thanks for having us, and thanks for all the work that Able Trust is doing to
Very welcome.
get more Floridians employed with differences. So VyStar has been a longtime supporter of the Arc Jacksonville in a lot of different capacities through volunteer work and obviously philanthropic support. They're a huge supporter of the community in general. In addition, we've had several board members over the years who came from the VyStar leadership team and have been invaluable in advising us in that way. But really, I guess, employment partnership began in 2020, March of 2020, historically, right before, obviously things changed a lot. And VyStar hired a person who was referred from the Arc, and the individual had an intellectual disability or an intellectual difference, as we say. And they hired that person as a tower host, and he assists his peers in the operations and just the different activities that happen in what they call their employee engagement spaces. And really at that point, it took VyStar's support, I'd say, to the next level. So obviously a lot of not-for-profits have a lot of supporters in the community, but VyStar went from saying, yes, we like the work we do and we want to help, to really saying, we also value people of all abilities and we want to be a leader in employing a diverse workforce. And a diverse workforce includes people with disabilities. So that really was when we turned the corner. And they became really a leader in our area in that initiative. And shortly after that first hire, the Jacks Chamber launched the Connectable 20 and 20 campaign, and they were aiming to get 20 businesses to hire 20 people with differences. And of course, VyStar had already done this, but they kind of upped the ante and expanded their employment opportunities at that point for people with differences. So it started as, I think, traditional support that a lot of nonprofits receive, and then it became really buying into the idea, and VyStar truly kind of walking the walk as far as creating an inclusive workplace.
Amazing. Great. Thanks, Kari. All right, Brian, how does VyStar foster a culture of inclusion? What's your secret?
Yeah, so we'll talk a bit about how at VyStar inclusion is a must. It's a part of who we are. I want to go back and talk about some of the things that Kari mentioned. While we've always been engaged as a community organization, over the past 5 years, we've really increased our corporate giving, as well as our volunteerism and community engagement. In fact, our contributions over the past year are up about 15-fold from 5 years ago. And that aligns with the change we made in our purpose and in our core values. And two of those really came out in some comments that Kari just made. Our purpose as an organization is not to provide financial services products. Any of the financial services organizations can do that. We believe we do it really well, but our purpose is to do good in our community, have an impact on our employees, to have an impact on our members, to have an impact on our community. And specifically, we look at our core value as leading by example. So one of the things that we always want to lead by example in is diversity, equity, inclusion. And for us, that means all people. We've been working over the past few years to really develop our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and we've created ERGs, employee resource groups, and VyStar resource groups for all our employees who, whether it's being from a minority population or being an individual with intellectual and developmental disabilities, that you have a place that you feel you fit into our organization and that you can be well represented. One of those employee resource groups is our Viabilities group, which is a group for intellectually and developmentally different individuals so that they can really fulfill themselves at work. Kari noted something that we did a few years back, which was we developed a whole program in our HR department around our VyStar visionary employment, and it was to provide pathways to employment for individuals with differences or without a clear pathway to employment. Now that includes individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities like Robbie, who was our first hire from the Arc, and Robbie is an amazing individual that is loved by everyone at the organization. But we've also worked with homeless youth from LGBTQ plus organizations. We've worked with individuals coming out of jail through another nonprofit partner here in town, and we've been working to set up relationships with individuals from women coming out of sex trafficking. So we do a lot of work around making sure that not only Robbie and then the additional hire into our mailroom about 2 years later from the Arc, but also across the board of individuals that represent our community so that we represent our membership and who we're serving.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So what's your secret? Where does your passion come from?
I think for myself, me and my family represent some of those subsets of the community. And I always want to make sure that, struggles I went through in growing up and struggles that we may project for our son in the future don't exist as much as we can prevent them. And if we can make one small difference in our organization, make one small difference in our community, and then hopefully, as I said, lead by example and lead others to make change, whether that's individually or as corporate citizens.
That is truly inspiring. It really is. Thank you so much, Brian. So for both of you, and Kari, I'll kick it to you first. When an employer hires a person with a disability, what are the 2 to 3 things that the employer should know when working with a service provider? And similarly, what are the 2 to 3 things a service provider should know about working with employers?
That's a great question. I think as service providers, we all believe that people of all abilities are very employable and can make great employees, but sometimes you have to bridge that gap. And I would say to begin with is finding the right partners. Obviously, Brian and his team bought into this. They truly, right now with the employment crisis, everyone's looking for employees, but that wasn't the approach that VyStar took. They were going at it for the right reasons and wanted to find the right fit. So certainly building on your existing supporters is a great start. I mentioned VyStar was a longtime supporter of the ARC before the employment relationship began, because you want people to really buy into the mission. It's not just a job in many situations. And many supporters are employers, their businesses in our communities, and they may not even be thinking beyond financial. They may be thinking, oh, it's nonprofit, they want us to donate, we'll donate. So starting with people who have some familiarity with your mission to understand what some of the nuances might be of hiring someone with a disability. And then just to start small, just like everyone, not everyone is a perfect fit for every job. You couldn't put me in any job and I would be successful. And that's very much true for people with differences too. So really finding the right fit for the job, and then taking time, and this is both from a service provider perspective and also from an employer perspective, is it's got to be an employer partner who already values staff onboarding and training and that investment in people on the front end, because certainly, again, like all people with differences are more likely to succeed when that front end work is done well, and that is a partnership with the service provider. So we have job coaches that can work with the team. So Brian and his leadership very much buys into it. And then someone gets hired and they're working with this person on a day-to-day basis, and they haven't necessarily come along for the whole journey that got us there. But that's where our job coaches can work with the frontline manager and explain different strategies and ways to help the person be successful. And I guess the last thing for both service providers and employers is just being willing to pivot. People with differences aren't perfect, and just like the rest of us, there's going to be times they end up in jobs that aren't a good fit, and that is okay. And I think it's important that it's always addressed, and you want it to be a good fit. You want the employer to have a good experience. So like what VyStar did happens, where it's a long-term relationship and something that you can grow on. But there's going to be times when we all think this person's great for this job, and then we get in there and there's maybe multiple reasons why it's just not a good fit, but maybe there's other things we can do. And that, is respectful of the individual and making sure that they're not put in a situation that they feel bad about every day. But I think sometimes both service providers and employers want it to work so bad, maybe, we let it go on, issues go on too long, instead of acknowledging that like any employee, there are going to be challenges and issues. So just being willing to pivot when you need to, I think protects the relationship and the individual.
Yeah, really good advice. Brian, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I would speak from the other side of exactly what Kari mentioned. For us, it's about knowing your partner and who you're working with. Service providers that are out there are some really great ones. And especially if you have a long-term relationship with them, you have a knowledge or working relationship. If you're looking to make your workforce more diverse, they are there to assist and to help you along the way. And so for us, it was about opening up that relationship, saying how else can we work together to improve our community, and really being open on the communication between us and them about what we were looking for, what we were looking to achieve, if this was a good fit, and then finding the right individual. And I would say that's an important part about this. is depending on the situation you're working with. I mentioned a couple of different subsets of groups that we work with. The service provider has the knowledge, the experience in that area, and really relying on them for who the right fit for what you're looking to achieve or the job you're looking to fill is important. I would say one of the things that we do that's different, that the reason we put it into that VyStar visionary employment that I mentioned, was that we did add not just bringing those individuals in and putting them into those jobs, but wraparound services as much as we could support of our own sort of job training and case management and life coaching, and then also knowing what service providers we can call on to assist with that. We're looking for ways to continue to enhance that program and make sure that we are a good provider or a partner to those service providers at all times.
That's amazing. Yeah, treating those service providers as the expert, because that's exactly who they are. Yeah, that's the winning solution, I think. All right. So Miss Kari, back to you. One moment. How does the Arc of Jacksonville support VyStar in their mission to employ people with disabilities? In what specific ways had they had to lean on you, and how did you offer that support?
Leanne, I mentioned the first hire that VyStar made was right before the pandemic started. And I think obviously we learned a lot about a lot of things during that time. But for us, certainly, we learned about the critical services that we have to provide for an employee and an employer to be sure that they are set up for success. And that includes, I mentioned earlier, really a plan to collaborate with the frontline managers once a decision is made. Obviously, it's critical for leadership to buy in, but then the team members that are working with the individual day after day, and sometimes those positions turn over, of course. So being able to go back in and train maybe the next manager on how to help the person be successful. And job coaches are typically who we have doing that. So we employ several different job coaches that are actually on the job site. This is no expense to the employer, and they offer support. They train the person, they address any ongoing challenges. It doesn't replace their manager in any way, but it's just another piece of the puzzle to help people with differences, especially in the beginning. And some people might need more training in the beginning, and some people might not need as much training depending on the job and what their past experience is. And again, I say it all the time, that's no different than any other person we all hire. There's people that need more in the beginning and people that don't need as much. So the job coaches kind of scale up and scale down depending on what they need. So with VyStar, the individuals they hire, we have someone who supports them in those efforts. And we've identified, because of the timing, really even ways to continue to improve that as far as frontline manager training, really structuring that in a way that is a support to VyStar, because they are so inclusive and so welcoming. And we want to be sure that we are being a good partner so that it is, they get the full, experience of that. And it's not, they're kind of going at it on their own.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're on an island. Yeah. That support is important. Right. Brian, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think Kari covered it on that one, so good.
Right. Perfect. So Brian, what has been your approach to hiring and retaining people with disabilities?
I think I would say, as I mentioned about leading by example, as one of the largest employers in Northeast Florida, we definitely wanted to set an example for others, for not only our nonprofit partners, but also for the corporate entities within Northeast Florida and, quite frankly, across Florida as we continue to expand. We noted a moment ago about making those connections with the right service providers and building those relationships. That's an extremely important part of the process, making sure that you're working with the right partners. Kari noted that it's not always going to be the right fit. It's not always going to work out perfectly. And so both in good times and in times of challenge or trouble, you want to have that right partner there. We have always worked hard to be open about communication with our partners, sharing, as I said, what we need, but also answering their questions and answering the candidates' questions to make sure that they are really feeling a part of the process and that they feel like it's a good fit for them as an individual. Because one of the things that we work really hard to do is to make sure that the individuals, once they come in, feel like they are part of our organization, to feel like this is a job that that they're proud to wake up to every day, and that they're doing something that really contributes to our organization, whether it's helping our employees, our members, or the community as a whole, and having some impact in moving our organization forward. I don't think there's anyone that wants to feel like they're just being given this because of an intellectual and developmental disability, or because of some other trait that makes them a minority member of the community. They want to feel like they do have valid knowledge and experience and skills that they're bringing to the table, and making sure that they know that that's valued and that you want to utilize it, letting them know that they are empowered to utilize it, and that they should work hard, and that you will work hard to help them feel fulfilled in their employment with you, has all been very important to us as part of our process.
That's amazing. Great. Thank you so much. And Brian, while I have you, what would you say is the best piece of advice you can give an employer who is considering a more diverse workforce?
Yeah, I would say don't wait. Get started now. And I agree with Kari about starting slow, making sure that you're ready for it. Even if you've built out a program around it or whatnot, there's still going to be learning that happens as it occurs. But when you're ready, continue to invest in it and ramp up. I will tell you, when we announced the first employee into the program, along with some other stuff that we've done in the community to support individuals that have differences, our own employee base has just swelled with pride and communicated that back to us, and it's really helped individuals in our organization feel more connected to us, individuals in the community feel more connected to us. So we're both helping out individuals who need that help and deserve that help, helping to elevate them into these roles. But we're also seeing great reward in our employee base and our membership base. And so there's no reason to wait to get started. Take it slow, but then continue to invest and build in that program. All too often people get stuck in all the reasons they can't do things, or the ways that they used to do things, or how are we going to make accommodations for this? If you put the time, energy, and effort into it, you will succeed.
Yeah, that's amazing. Couldn't have said it better myself. Kari, how about you? Same question.
Advice for employers, I would say think outside the box. I think Brian and his team, they're a very innovative group, so they've been great at that. But especially when you're working with people with intellectual and developmental differences, the value they bring is going to be much greater than just the task. So you have to think beyond just matching up a person with a job. But the individual oftentimes contributes to culture and morale and things that are very unique, that just go beyond the work they're doing. And I've said this many times, but people with differences are people, and they're just like us. They want to have a sense of community. They want a job that they can wake up and look forward to going to. It gives them a purpose. And ultimately, it's the sense of belonging that we all look for in our communities. And work provides that. And so when someone has that experience, they're continuing to grow in their employment and giving back to the organization in ways really beyond just the work that they do every day. So it's kind of thinking a little bit outside the box, but also realizing some of the benefits are going to be not what you typically would think about when you're hiring people to do a job.
Right. I think it's so important that you both mentioned the impact hiring people with differences has on your employees as a whole. I think it's really important that you both mentioned that, because it's true. It's a culture shift, or it starts a culture shift. Or it has the potential to. So we have gotten quite a few questions in our Q&A feature. And I think the first one is over here. So this one's for both of you. So Kari, if you want to answer first, what is the process you use to find the best job for the clients you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say it's not much different than what all of us do as we find jobs that are a good fit for us. So there are different forms of internships or paid job experiences that a lot of the individuals we work with go through to kind of figure out where is their skill set. There are some actual evidence-based assessments we can do to match people up, again, just like many of us do when we're starting college or kind of career exploration. So we start with that as really a career exploration and being sure that the individual has the basic work ready skills, so that we're not just plug and play. We're not just taking a person, finding them a job, taking a person, finding them a job, but really figuring out where are their strengths and matching those up. So really starting with, I guess, long before we're even in the job search process, as far as looking for skills and attributes that might make someone successful. And then again, just like everyone else, we go and try and find jobs that match that.
Right. Great. All right, Brian, same question for you.
Yeah, I think we tend to look at every job and evaluate why not. Why can't someone with XYZ intellectual or developmental disability do this job? And if we don't come up with a good reason, we push forward with providing it as an option to our providers.
Great. Perfect. Okay. So also for you, Brian, what are some of, excuse me, what are some other initiatives VyStar has supported to promote a more inclusive community?
I mentioned the employee and VyStar resource groups that we've done. We were part of the Chamber's 20 and 20. We've worked with the Chamber on getting women into senior leadership. And, and then the VyStar Visionary Employment Program. We also just worked through a video in support of autism. We support the hearing impaired and deaf community, especially in St. Augustine, in our branches, and are working to create departments in which they can work in.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, a couple more from the Q&A feature. This one looks like it is directed towards you, Brian, again, making you work hard for this, aren't I? What are, excuse me. How does the VyStar Visionary Employment Program work?
So we started the program a few years back. We looked for career opportunities that we thought that individuals could do that didn't have clear pathways to employment. We started working with our service providers to match with individuals that could fill those roles. And then, as noted, we go out, we do a whole different application process, because if you think of a lot of the people who would apply for these roles, they might go through a normal HR process that has hundreds of individuals applying. They may need access to the internet, which, as we talked about, part of the population we work with is homeless youth. Then they may not be prepared, whether it's in the clothing that they have, or their ability for transportation, or their preparedness for interviews. And so we work through each of those to understand the person, the individual, and what their ultimate capabilities could be, and not where they're coming from or the situation they're coming from. So we work with them on how to fill out the application. We work with them once people come into our organization. We have 0% loans and grants for Dress for Success for clothes to wear. We have it for technological resources like phones and computers. And we ensure that the person has the full wraparound services that they need to be successful with us. So it's everything from who we partner with, to how we go through the process, to once they're in the role. And then we work with the manager in that position to understand some of the things that they might see, whether it's, someone who's got their first job in a long time. And so, yes, they may show up late or have some issues that arise in working through each of those.
I can't tell you how important that is. As a person with a disability, I have lost one job because of it, and it was devastating. So having, a job where you are surrounded by people who genuinely seem to care. It's life changing. I would, I mean, it would be for me.
And I think that's the difference, right? Of whether you
Yeah.
use the reason as a reason not to do it, or whether you lean in and you support individuals and you understand those differences and you make sure that you give them every amount of support that you can to help them be successful, instead of, you know, throwing your hands up and saying this won't work, let's go back to the easy pathway.
Right, that's too hard. I don't want to. Yeah. Okay. So we've got another one that says, what is the role that the Able Trust plays in the process of employing individuals with disabilities? So the Able Trust is the connector for businesses and service providers like Kari and VyStar. So we are here to make these connections and to offer support in when it comes down to data and research, offering information based on research. We like I mentioned earlier, we just completed over a dozen listening sessions with businesses and providers to hear what's going on with the boots on the ground. So we, as the state's Foundation for Disability Employment, we can provide the support that Kari and her team need, and the support that Brian and his team need. But we don't know how to do that until we listen to them. So that's what we've been doing for the last year or so. Good question. I feel so included now. All right. So Brian, you're very popular today. I got another question for you. What kind of benefit packages does VyStar offer to employees?
Yeah, and I'm really happy that I'm popular. Trying to struggle through some allergies. I do apologize for that.
You're forgiven.
You know, so our own employees are one of the most important assets that we have, whether it includes the employees that we're talking about today on this call, or every one of our back office and frontline employees. And we've seen that time and again through things like COVID and some issues we had this summer, where our employees have stepped up to make a difference in our members' lives and in our communities. We've always committed to doing the best we can for our employees. We have a very competitive living wage program and bonus program. We have extensive medical, dental, and vision plans, some of them for employees that are free. We have long-term, short-term disability, 401k matching, all of those things. But we also have adoption assistance. We have days off for people's birthdays, for healthcare, for volunteering. We give donations when you volunteer. You get to take a check with you to those programs. We have parental leave, pretty much anything that you would find anywhere else, plus some. As I said, you know, we've got one of the most extensive comp and bennies plans that I've seen. But when you add to that things like adoption assistance, or we actually do matching on contributions to 529 plans for your kids to go to school, just like people do for 401ks. I'm pretty proud of what we do for our employees, while also doing right by our members and our community.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very unique. Right. Kari, can you tell us a little bit more about all of the programs? I mean, obviously, the ARC assists with employment, as we've heard. What are some of the other programs the ARC offers?
So the ARC is really the Arc Jacksonville is an innovator in a lot of ways, and this long predates me, but a lot of people might be familiar with, on our residential side, we do pretty much anything that touches someone's life. So that can be work, obviously living, play, whatever it is. So we have group homes, we have our village, which is one of VyStar's employees lives at the village, which is kind of a first in the country model for independent living for people with differences. And it allows individuals to live totally independently, but with the supports they need to be successful. Then we also are currently building a 6-person home, actually right beside the village. It'll be the first home of its kind that serves individuals with both intellectual difference and a mental health diagnosis. So for a long time, the mental health needs of individuals with differences have been somewhat neglected and always just kind of attributed to the person's disability. And we know that oftentimes our individuals with differences can be even more successful if their mental health needs are met, which is true for all of us, obviously. And then I'll just share one of our newer programs that just launched about a year ago is called Life Path, and it is led by an attorney. And it started really as we look at the aging caregiver almost crisis that's happening throughout the country. About a third of people with an intellectual difference live with an aging caregiver. And, 20, 30 years ago, individuals with differences, the life expectancy wasn't what it was today. So families are now kind of facing the reality that there's a good chance they will outlive their child with a difference, and they've never thought that would be a reality. So the title of the presentation is What Keeps You Up at Night, and really helping families think through what are the things that keep them up at night, that they think about, when I'm gone, who's going to do this? When I'm gone, who's going to do that? And getting all those pieces together so that there's continuity in the person's life. And that is a brand new program we're creating from scratch that doesn't exist at all anywhere, but it's all, it's a form of lifelong planning that really has not been a need until now. So anything you can think of that, I guess, improve someone's life with a difference. The goal is always to give people as much opportunity to be included in their greater community as we can. We all want that, and people with differences are no different. So while we have a lot of programs for individuals with differences, we want those to be embedded. We want people to be working at VyStar. We want people to get to know their peers and to just live life to the fullest. So whatever we can do to assist them is kind of where we step in.
That's great. I mean, that is the biggest fear, is what happens when we age. Yes. Kari, another question for you. What kind of prep or pre-work training do you do with your clients to make sure they are work ready?
So there's a few different things, and this is actually, we're even kind of developing newer strategies for this as we're talking, but we have work readiness programs that focus on job skills. We have a program almost like a job shadowing type program to really give individuals a chance to see what's involved with the job. Just like all of us, I used to work in healthcare, and people would come out of high school and say, oh, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a doctor, and we'd bring them in to intern in the hospital, and they'd pass out as soon as they saw blood. And so we see that with people with differences. They'll say, oh, I really want to, I don't know, be a hostess or something. And then once they have the experience to shadow or see what really is involved, they're like, oh no, I actually don't really want to talk to people. I really want to deal with the public on a day-to-day basis. So some of it is trial and error and making sure that through job shadowing, and that can be done virtually, that can be done in person, people understand what's involved with the job, and then identifying the skills that they might need in the job that we're targeting and making sure they have those skills through all sorts of, typically it's very customized one-on-one training. Sometimes we do camps that are focused on overall work readiness, but for the most part, the job coach is working one-on-one ahead of, the job coach gets involved long before the person is placed. So to get the person the real-time experience to be sure that they have the social skills or an ability to develop those.
Right. And it's important to note that most of us, our first job is not the job we're doing right now.
Correct.
And for me personally, it's not even close to what I went to school for.
So yes, there's always that conversation too, where you start somewhere and you build those skills. So someone's lifelong goal may be to have a very different job, but you learn your job skills at your first job, wherever that is. So like everyone else, oftentimes we have clients that start in restaurant or hospitality, but that's not where, they don't want to be there forever. And that's not the goal, is to keep them there forever. It's to get the skills so that then they can move to have a real career. It's not just a job, but a career for them.
Right. That upward trajectory is important for every person. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we are going to wrap up, everybody. So if we did not get to your question, we will, Arnaldo and I will reach out to you directly. And Arnaldo, if we can get that last slide up on screen. Maybe. Here we go. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate you being here with us. And I really encourage you to reach out to me directly if you'd like. My email address is right there on your screen, leanne@abletrust.org. If you'd like to go back and read those reports that we have published, they are available on our website, also on your screen. And then please follow us on all the social media. Again, we'd love to see how you start your morning. Show us that cup of ambition. Tell us what's in there. And last but certainly most importantly, thank you to Brian and Kari and all of you for joining us. I look forward to connecting with each of you later. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.